First off, how are you doing?
Pretty good. Thanks for having me.
No problem, man. Thanks for sitting down with me over this. So the whole point of this is just kind of to track where you are in your journey, how you kind of worked on your craft and where you are now. So it's really just trying to explore that.
Okay.
First off, we're sitting in, it's Ventura. It used to be the 1011. You're the new owner of it. How's everything going with that so far?
Good. It's been a crazy, hectic journey trying to get this place going, but we've been doing it pretty well. We had the grand opening last weekend, and it's been going pretty smooth since then. There's always more to do and more to get done, but I think we've got a pretty decent handle on it so far.
Yeah, it seems like it. I've been hearing nothing but good things. A really nice change from the 1011 into Ventura. It's all right. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to try to just go back as far as I can to see where your kind of influences started, where your craft kind of started to kind of form. How long have you been playing music?
Probably like too long. I probably started, I don't know, I could say like I was playing guitar in 8th grade and like that sort of thing, but I would say I like officially started something good in like 2009 or so.
Okay. Are you originally from San Antonio?
Yeah, I've been in San Antonio for forever.
Okay. What I understand is that your parents actually owned a venue, you and your family, kind of this grassroots kind of venue called The Lab?
Yeah, it was called The Lab. I think that was in 2006.
Mm-hmm.
I was a junior in high school, and my grandfather just passed away, so we found this little like empty warehouse like in like the suburbs of Kirby, Texas, and we just started I was already kind of involved in the music scene, so I knew how stuff worked, and I was young, so it really wasn't about like the bar side of things. We weren't really worried about like the alcohol stuff. We were just young kids trying to put on shows and have a good time. So we rented out that space, and for about a year we just had a really cool time. I was young, so eventually it was like all of my weekends were these shows, and it was cool, but even for me at that time it was like, dang, I'm kind of tired, yeah, it was a really cool thing we did. A lot of people even back then, I think only a few people now would probably remember, but for the ones that do, I think it was pretty good. It was a pretty cool thing.
Did your parents encourage the arts? Did they encourage you to get into music and play music?
Yeah, my grandfather played guitar, my aunt and my uncle play guitar, so it was kind of always one of those things. We just, I grew up around it, so to my family that was just part of like the natural way of what something you get into. I'm sure they could have easily just told me to, try to get a real job or something like that, but they didn't, so that was good.
Okay, as a kid, what were some of the things you listened to? What were you interested in, kind of in that inception period?
As a kid, I probably listened to really terrible music. I did listen to really terrible music. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like a lot of people go through that, especially around that time. It was all like hardcore and,
Mm-hmm.
that sort of thing. As I got out of my kind of heavier side of music, it just kind of started to occur to me that if I wanted to make music that wasn't just going to appeal to like one sort of genre or type of music listener, that I wanted to expand what I was doing. And that wasn't necessarily saying like, oh, I want to make mainstream music, because that's still obviously not what I do. But it was it helped me expand thinking that way, in order to, play a song for like my family, where I wasn't screaming into the microphone or something like that, and Yeah, just in general, just trying to be more universal, find kind of a universal sound that wasn't necessarily defined by a genre, just a feeling. And I think that's why Dear Vibe started instrumentally, because that's, instrumental music is really like that. You can get in touch with it without lyrics, and
It's kind of abstract.
yeah.
Is that around the time you started performing?
I started performing probably when I was like 16 in those terrible bands that I was in. So it's never really been like a nerve-wracking thing for me. I guess as I got better and my standards got higher, it was like, more pressure to do well. But yeah, I guess, it's always just kind of been a thing I've done.
So you've always felt very natural with it, like a very natural stage presence whenever you're performing.
Yeah, and I guess that goes both ways. I mean, sometimes I get on stage and I'm like very obvious about how I feel in that moment. Whereas to other times I can kind of, push how I'm actually feeling to the side and try to embrace the good time that I should be having, I guess is the way to put it.
Gotcha. When did you start becoming more involved in the San Antonio local music scene? Start just performing there?
Yeah, I mean, I guess again, when I was 16, I mean, it really just started like at the White Rabbit and Cafe Revolution back when that was still a thing. Like we played a bunch of different shows, a bunch of different venues. I mean, the Sanctuary, and it was part of the younger scene still. I mean, there was still like those older places of playing, but I think for the most part, a lot of people at that time were always in the same areas, and it was, the White Rabbit or the Sanctuary and stuff like that. Sin 13. What was the question?
Well, let me ask this. Was this around the time that kind of the 10-11 and the Warhol came into your life? Is this around the time that they drafted you, the owners?
No, I guess it was probably just a couple of years before that. I started working at the 10-11 in 2008, and I kind of got hired by some work I did for another promoter in town. I started off running sound. At some point when like I was in this transition of like how frequent I was playing live, I started running sound a lot because I had a system from the lab that was like portable. So I would just go around and run sound for like the main promoter that I was working with at the time, and he was the one that gave me he gave the 10-11 guys the referral for me, I guess, basically. And so it was kind of crazy to think about that because, I was just like this young kid doing it for the hell of it, like not really playing, not really getting paid a lot, and but at the time it was just all passion and wanting to be involved in the music scene, that sort of thing. So it's crazy to think about how like coming from that point like kind of led me to where I am.
Yeah, I understand that they moved you around a lot. I mean, you started as like the sound guy, became the bartender, and that was Brandon Hicks, Jordan Williams, and Colin Wells.
Yeah. Yeah, so I just started off as the sound guy. Really, I was here so much. I mean, there wasn't really too many times that like someone else was needed to be brought in or anything. But there was 3 owners, and they were all really involved in the beginning right away. So one of them would always work the bar and stuff. As time went on, and people were here less and less for whatever reasons, families and jobs and stuff like that. And as I was getting older, because I mean I was only like 18 when I started here, maybe just about to turn 19 or something like that. But yeah, I guess I was just about to turn 19. They needed someone to like bartend and stuff, and I mean it was just beer and stuff like that, so it wasn't like a super hard thing to do, but it was more the responsibility of like me getting older and having more responsibilities as I was in this particular job.
Mm-hmm. Well, I imagine that really kind of helped develop a sound for you, because I mean you're seeing hundreds and hundreds of bands come here, a bunch of performing acts. So I imagine that had a huge influence on you.
Yeah, that definitely did. It was always something I kept in mind about what people were doing. I mean, both ways, being in like a home base in San Antonio and seeing even like the touring bands coming through, and like what's the level, what's the standards of bands and music going on at that point, to going out on the road later on, and seeing, you know, where are we at when we go out and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So in that way, and I was always very much interested in music and expanding like my knowledge on, you know, where these bands were coming from, and anybody that ever inspired me, and listening to a lot of different music too. I mean, not just starting from the heavier side of music, but you know, instrumental music in general expands so far throughout what it could be. So I tried to absorb everything I could in that sense, and in a live music sense too. You know, it was how prepared are these bands, and you know, you learn right away like how to get on and off stage really quickly. At least we try.
When did Dear Vibes kind of come into your life? What's the inception of that?
I was playing with some friends in a band called Through Her Vibe, and they were really good friends of mine. I had like fallen in love with their music before I had really even met them, and I guess around the time of the lab, like, you know, I started booking bands that like still exist today and people that we still work with today, but at that time I didn't really know them, and I was just like a huge fan of their music, and I think, I don't know how exactly, but we started working together, and that really like was the start of me opening up my I guess how I played and what I was aiming for. Because I mean, they were like great guitarists, and like, you know, so I got better at guitar at that time, you know, because you're surrounded by like these great musicians, and it's like you got to keep up if you that's what you want to do. So, and I sure tried. So, after that band kind of was like taking a little break, I started Dear Vibes out of this like kind of impatience of like, you know, well, and I mean impatience, but also more of an understanding and an education behind what I was wanting to do again. So when I came back around to like, okay, I'm gonna make music for myself now, that's when I started Dear Vibes, and that was probably like 2009 or something like that.
Who were some of those original core members that you got together?
Well, none of them are really around anymore, but you know, I had my friend from like middle school, like Isaac Duvon, playing like guitar. We had a couple of different bassists. I mean, Devin played bass for a little bit at the very beginning. Then we got our friend Alex Ramirez, who was like a part of like the group of Through Her Vibe people, and I don't even remember the drummer because we just kept going in and out with drummers at like the first 2 years we were together. It was kind of hell. So, and that's kind of why officially like I see Dear Vibe starting in like 2011, because this like from 2009 to 2011 was just this big like unorganized, like we're making music, we're trying to do things, but we were like far from any sort of structured like literally like having some sort of business plan, which, you know, at this point I'm always feeling like you should always do that at this point, you know, even with art and with passion. Like if you're happy doing whatever it is you're doing, then that's cool, but my goal at some point turned into like, you know, let's actually do something with it. So that's where like kind of taking things more serious came along, and trying to figure out the best ways of doing it.
Yeah, I know, like you're saying, over the years you guys have had quite a few lineup changes. And I know even when you guys perform, I've seen picture of a spreadsheet where you guys have to kind of plot out every performance. Okay, who can do this? Who can do this? So I imagine with how big Dear Vibes is, it can be a little frustrating.
Yeah, it gets frustrating. There's good and bad to it for sure. I mean, that was, I guess, in a way you could say part of the, not necessarily the plan, but the in expanding our music with more of an orchestral sound that I was going for, trying to be more of a composer in this like indie rock scene rather than something else. Having more members, and as I got more experienced, having the parts for these members, it became less crucial for who was around, and that was a big part of those 2 years that Dear Vibes was just kind of scrambled because we started over a lot. If somebody were to back out, like the drummer, it was actually always more of those core members that it was hard to keep together rather than like an ensemble of people, because at that point a couple people not showing up in your ensemble doesn't mean you don't have the parts there. So that's kind of how we act more as now, because from that point, one of the things you learn is like, if it's something you want to do, like, well, don't get held up by something as amateur as somebody dropping out on you and then you're screwed. I mean, so for bringing that kind of composer mindset to it, it kind of just became necessary. Well, like, okay, if you don't want to, if someone couldn't make it, then I'm gonna just keep going, and that's changed in different ways, as far as performing live versus like recording more and trying to get the recordings out rather than taking a big group on tour and stuff. I mean, we've done that before, and those were great times. But as you get older, it's like the recordings are there, and the recordings you can push as far as you can, and kind of even more so further than you can just going on the road. No matter how much you're on the road, unless you have some sort of backup as far as some sort of management or label type stuff, I mean, you can go out on the road all you want. It doesn't matter where you go, like, you're not going to be picked up out of nowhere, at least not commonly. And to see as many bands that are on tour, like, it's definitely even more of a sign. I mean, there's great bands on tour. There's great bands doing all of the work. But if I gotta, at this point, I'm like, if I gotta pay some like publication people to like put my stuff out there and it can have the exact same amount of reach, then like what makes more sense? Like, am I gonna spend like thousands of dollars on gas money and planning and time booking and stuff like that, or am I gonna pay some people to promote my stuff around the country or the world, and so that's kind of where we're going at this point.
I see. I know that it's kind of become a collection of different sounds that you and the core members have really liked. So you've recruited a lot of members from other bands. I know people from like who were in the band like Tetra are in this now. I believe you had one bandmate from Femina X who was in Dear Vibes for a little while. So it's kind of creating just kind of this unique sound out of sounds that you guys like.
Yeah, I think mainly where that kind of came from was the beginning of Dear Vibes. Like, more of our, I guess, the younger side of Dear Vibes, where we were younger and probably not focused, definitely not focused, but it was a very natural sound, and so at that point, that kind of established what Dear Vibes was, or at least would become, and if anything, helped define it. We're cutting out the good and bad of where we've been throughout the past years. It's definitely shaped us into the way we sound now. Yeah, we work with different people, and we bring them in different ways. The writing process doesn't change that much anymore, though. You know what I mean? It's just always for the most part, just what I'm bringing to the table at the time.
Okay. You guys really do have a unique sound. Not really anything I've heard here in San Antonio. Did that kind of come from you? Was it kind of just everyone coming in and you're finding this almost like big band sound?
Originally, I mean, it definitely came from everyone again, kind of, just like as we were starting and as we were just jamming, and we found our like Texas country indie rock sound. But the other side of that is kind of just going back to how much music I had listened to and the bands we see and stuff like that. It's like, I would say we're fairly original. I don't know. We go out onto we go out on the road, and you see the bands that are really good and are doing the right things, or maybe not doing the right things, but are also really good. But I feel like we've consistently, wherever we've gone, we've got good feedback from people, and they kind of always say, like it's super original, and it's not, not necessarily always because we're like playing some random show with bands we've never heard of that don't sound anything like us in general, or like the indie rock kind of sound, but more so just, we aim to be different.
One thing that I found really ironic, I brought up this kind of big band sound. Obviously, you guys aren't big bands, but you definitely have that kind of influence. And I found it really ironic because you guys have a song called Glenn Miller.
Yeah.
Is that kind of where that came from, or?
Actually, that's a hilarious question. We were actually just in Austin one time, and we were staying there for like the week of South by, or I can't remember exactly. It might have just been like a one-off during part of a tour or something in Austin while we were making our way out or back or something like that. But we had a really good show, and we were staying at our friend's house, but it was a place we had never been, and it was just like the bands that we had played with. And we had a trailer in my van, and so it was like, and we were parked on the street, and I actually, well, that's not important. Basically, like the neighbor lady was like kind of yelling at us like to move our stuff out of her like driveway. I mean, it wasn't in her driveway, like it was just like on the street, but she was like asking us to move it. And then this old man like from across the street, like sitting on his patio, talking to like this lady like watering her lawn, like yelling at us to move our stuff. He was just like, "Hey, you leave those boys alone, like you let them do what they want." And then some of the band went up to him to talk to him and thank him, and he was like, "Oh, my name's Glenn Miller," and like we just had this whole conversation with him, and so I guess we were just writing the song around that time, or like working on the song, and we were just like, we'll just call the song Glenn Miller from now on. And so that's how that happened. Although, yeah, totally, big band and jazz influenced as well. But
what a strange coincidence.
Yeah, it really was.
It's like when I see you performing on there, obviously you have this huge ensemble, but you're kind of like the band leader, so it brings back, memories of like Glenn Miller, Duke Ellington, Miles Davis, who kind of perfected that sound with this ensemble.
Right.
So I just thought that was very ironic.
Well, that's a cool thing to say too. Thank you.
You're talking a little bit about your writing process. What is your writing process like?
Well, for the most part, I'll just if I'm just like working on a song or something, I'll try to envision how it'll be with the rest of the instruments. I mean, I guess originally the way that I've put it into why I've kind of made the band the way it is I'm not like a great guitar player or anything like that. Like, mediocre, and there's so many guitar players, and so for that to be like the first instrument I picked up, and then just looking around me right away, I was like, well, damn it, I'll probably never be as good as like some other guys, And so that stopped being the goal. It wasn't like, okay, well, I'm not going to be the best guitar player, but I would like to write songs. So how, still in that instrumental phase at that time, or just wanting to write for bigger pieces, it was like, it would be a lot cooler if instead of me just playing like this on guitar, which might sound rather simple, if I had like a trumpet do it. And then it was like, well, it just kind of began layering on itself, because it was like, I'm not good at it by myself. So if I can see these compositions and kind of put them all together layer by layer and piece by piece, then all together it becomes something that is better than that guitar player that I would not have been anyways. So, I don't know, that's kind of how it all happens. And I guess that's just the way I think about it, and the way I kind of hear it.
I know your rehearsal process for both your current bands, Dear Vibes and Michael J. and the Foxes, is vastly different. I've spoken to a lot of people in both bands, and I've heard that your rehearsal process for Dear Vibes, because it's so many people, it's usually cramming a lot of people either into a living room, or you guys meet here, and you get at least 2 good runs off of each song, as opposed to Michael J. and the Foxes, you may or may not know who told me this, but one of your members actually sent me a video. Have you seen Walk the Line?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you know that scene where Johnny Cash is kind of auditioning and he starts playing Folsom Prison Blues, and then people slowly start to join in?
Yeah.
Is that kind of what Mikey J. and the Foxes?
Yeah. Michael J. is completely different than Dear Vibes.
Yeah.
And Dear Vibes is like my breath of life. But Michael J. is focused on a different side of the writing process, to where I'm just focusing on the singer-songwriter side of things, and to where I can be that mediocre guitar player, but now it's not the big instrumentation that I'm representing, it's my lyrics and my songwriting. So, and that's like the focus. So yeah, super when we're Michael J, it can just be kind of whatever, That's something, and I've learned a lot about too, as I've worked with different musicians. It's there are so many good musicians in San Antonio, and that type of musician is just so good. And it's a great combination of like musically experienced and trained, and having a lot of education behind it, while also being like super rock and roll, and like if you yell out a key, and a lead guitar player can just go off in it. And that was something that I kind of skipped over with Dear Vibes, because that wasn't what I was doing. And having like a super crazy lead guitar solo in Dear Vibes isn't really the point of Dear Vibes. So when we get to have fun in those segments of Michael J songs, it really is just kind of like a thing that like I can let grow by itself. I mean, I'm still bringing like the core of the song to the table, but musically it's just a lot more fun, a lot more free, and it's I can have fun with that a little bit easier than I could something that I have to like think about every piece of.
Is it a much more DIY approach than Dear Vibes?
I mean, they're both super DIY. But I don't know. In a way, I guess, as far as like, if I understand, Dear Vibes is, at least we try to be as clean as possible, as produced as possible, like on our record. I mean, that wasn't necessarily intentional, but the record is very well produced. We have like official CDs, and I mean, in that sense, we've still like been screen printing our own shirts since forever. But with Michael J, I'm like finding toys to put on the merch table, and I'm like coloring the CD cases myself. And
yeah, I saw your, you know, you did a cover for the Michael J and the Foxes.
Yeah.
It's like a Microsoft Paint
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Oh yeah, that one. Yeah. Yeah, so like in that sense, you know, it's more, I can be a little more punk rock is the way I put it, you know. And that's cool too, because the songs, I mean, Michael J is aimed towards a different audience that you would think it should be or could be more produced. But because it's fun, like I don't want it to stop being fun. Like I want to print a shirt with like a cartoon on it for Michael J and the Foxes, because that's the kind of fun it is to me. Like, and if I were to try to be as serious about it as I would with Dear Vibes, it would, I feel like, immediately not just be the same thing to me. And like, why do that? You know what I mean? It's almost like everybody in like country music is at least like legit good singer-songwriters are serious, you know, and take their, I mean, it's fun and you know, can be like this like drunken good time. But I'm not trying to necessarily sell the image of Michael J and the Foxes. I'm just trying to sell the songs.
Nice.
Yeah.
I see what you're saying. Now, how, lead singer, lead guitarist, you know, it's not uncommon for people to have kind of a stage persona. And you seem to have kind of created a stage persona that's a little bit, I think gloomy is the right word, a little bit gloomier than how you are. I know you're a, you know, a nice guy, nice charismatic guy, but where did that kind of come from?
I don't know if I made that up, honestly. I don't think I actually made that one up.
Was it just kind of like hyper realistic?
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's just based off of how I'm feeling at the time. Like, if I'm in a good mood with Dear Vibes, then I'll be in a good mood with Dear Vibes. If I'm not in a good mood with Dear Vibes, I don't find a reason to lie. I mean, and it's the same sort of way with Michael J, where like if I'm in a good mood, then I'll be in a good mood. If I'm in a bad mood, then I'm just in a more energetic bad mood with Michael J and the Foxes than I am with Dear Vibes, because I mean, the pieces themselves, at least the ones that I'm most touched by, are more somber or have different elements of this like melancholy tunes behind them. So like, it wouldn't make sense for me to be like, hey everybody, how y'all doing? And then like play like a sad ass song, you know? I mean, not that I couldn't, I guess. And I don't always, or you know, I am happy sometimes.
Your first EP was called Ventura. What is it about that name? Why use that?
So the neighborhood I grew up in was called Ventura. And so when we were writing, when I started Dear Vibes and we had this one song, and I just called it Ventura because it was kind of like, it was like one of the first official Dear Vibes songs that we like really established as our own. And that kind of just like, it was like the beginning of Dear Vibes. And so I wanted to find something, a name, especially because it was an instrumental song, that represented that feeling to me, like, you know, the beginning of this big journey. And so I took like my neighborhood, because that was like, you know, I mean, in a very literal sense, almost too literal, but like, you know, that was like the very beginning of my journey and the kind of things that I would feel that would make me make this sort of music from that time to this time. So it was like where I'm coming from and that sort of thing. So in continuing that, it was when I got to this point of opening up this bar, it was like you know, I did the same thing. I asked myself, well, where am I coming from? What am I? You know, a lot of people know Dear Vibes now, so it wasn't like I wasn't opening up this bar and thinking about my childhood. I opened this bar and thought, like, you know, Dear Vibes has a certain, some people know us, I guess you could say, and that's what I'm most known for. So I just did the same thing. I was like, where are my beginnings of what I found meaningful to me, and that's what I wanted to name it after. So I named it after the EP. So it's just like this long cycle of like reminding myself what's important and where I'm coming from. You know.
That's nice. It's really personal.
Yeah.
It's really, yeah. I didn't know that, but now I do. All right. Now, I have a quote from a very popular musician here in San Antonio, saying that the YOSA show for Radiohead's album, OK Computer, said to have changed the San Antonio local music scene forever. You had acts like Allison Alonso, Femina X, Lonely Horse. Year after that, they did Abbey Road. Did that kind of start your collaboration with Troy Peters and YOSA? Or did you know him beforehand?
After they did the first year with Radiohead, I jokingly was like, you know, YOSA should play with Dear Vibes, and like I kind of like put it out there as this like just kind of offhanded, like, you know, why don't we do this, you know? And when it got time to like start thinking about our CD release, I was like, why don't we do this? And so I just looked into it and ended up setting up a meeting with Troy, and he was very welcoming. He was very nice and supportive of the idea. We were working with 210 Empire for you know, the Empire Theater, and they were super excited about the idea. They had actually asked us to play there for their series, and I wasn't sure how long they were planning on doing it or anything, but I was like, the record was almost ready, and so we were like, can we do it later? And they said, yeah. And I was like, can we do it with YOSA? And they were like, yeah, you know, and they were really excited about it. And I felt kind of weird because every time we got offered something, I was kind of like turning it around like, can we do this too? And can we do this too? And that was like the first time I've ever been like really really forward about like my idea and what I thought would work really well. So it was just really great to have them being supportive, to be able to talk with Troy the way we did, and work with them in that sense. You know, we were all freaked out. We had never done anything like that before. I worked with Darian from Femina X, endearing, just from Darian, and he helped me score out the album officially from the tracks on the record. We just put that on paper, and he helped arrange it because I hadn't really experienced like the arranging as far as the sort of experience that he has in doing that sort of thing. So it was a super big collaborative effort, and I feel like, you know, being able to do that sort of thing on the level that we did and be performing original music, like our entire album, like that was just like one of the best things like that we've ever done. It was definitely one of the it was definitely a really big game changer for us on how we were feeling about the progress that we were making and you know, the potential for what else we could do.
And you've said that night of the album release was the most important night of your life so far.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know, even since then, like we had never played South by before, and I mean, that can be a big or not big deal to people, but a lot of things had fallen into place since then, and even before that a little bit, you know, just with the sort of work that we've been doing, we just had a really good, you know, and we won like the best indie rock band of the current awards in 2015, and that was right before the release, and that was kind of just all like things that I wanted to fall into place, like one thing after the other, to keep building up for the album release and to keep doing those things. I mean, we've had a really good time frame of a year, you know.
It definitely seems like it. I know whenever you dropped when you dropped the album, there was kind of a substantial gap between the EP and the album. I mean, it's like 5 years. So
yeah.
What things kind of changed?
Just myself and how serious I was taking it. And again, I mean, and that amount of time, it's hard to talk about, you know, the good without talking about the bad. But that's what I mean when I say, as far as like from 2009 to 2011, like those like 2 years or so, it was just all very young, and there was nothing wrong with that at the time. But you know, now take a band like Islands and Tigers, for example. They're a great group of musicians. Bobby is a great writer and a great producer of songs. They just like, they would go on tour, they would release an album and do it all over again. Like, and I don't know how many they have now, but it was consistent, and that's like the right way to do things. So they had like such a really good productive year. I wasn't thinking that when I was fucking, you know, 19 or however old I was in 2009 or whatever. You know, I was just thinking like that it was fun, and I was excited to be playing at Limelight and on the Strip for the first times, and with this new project. And the obstacles that we faced at that time were within the band, people dropping out and stuff like that. So when that would happen, I was just like, well, we're still getting out there. Let's just keep playing shows. Let's keep doing this and this. And I would try to revamp it from, if somebody left, you know, it's not a big deal. Let's keep going, which was the right thing to do, but not the right thing to focus on. But like, it shouldn't have been like playing shows any longer. It should have been, let me write more songs and record them, and then get a new group, or get this group to play these songs, or get this group to record these songs. You know, whatever, however it would have been. So like, I'm kind of a jerk, I guess, at times, but or strict, or have certain standards for myself and for what I see from the music scene. But you know, I mean, I like that I pointed out Islands and Tigers, because that's like just a really good example of a good, hardworking band. And so, you know, it's because for as good of this past year, and with the good things that we've done besides outside of this year and stuff like that, I've also done things wrong too. So we're still getting it together, just like everybody else. But I definitely wish I would have had like someone to tell me back then that this is the plan you need to be following, or this is what's going on. And back then, there wasn't as much activity or support for local music as there is now. You know, I think there might have been like one group that I can recall like putting things together, but I think that was later on. And I mean, and you know, when you're young, you don't. And at that time, it wasn't about everybody working together. It was this person versus this person and so forth. Or it was just more competitive. I mean, there were still friends. You still had your friends, but there was definitely not the sort of support we have now.
Yeah, no, Dear Vibe has definitely grown with the music scene in the past couple of years.
Yeah. So I don't know.
It's kind of an ambiguous meaning, the nature of. Well, why that?
I don't know. I guess we had a couple of different other names in mind. And some of the songs on the record, you know, some of them a lot of people had heard because we just played them live and they were never recorded. And some of them were a little bit newer, like that were more rarely heard, but probably never in the capacity that you would get to hear it on the record, as far as the instrumentation and everything like that. So with it still being somewhat new, I think the album in general really focuses, maybe not directly, maybe not bluntly, maybe not being very blunt, but you know, on emotion, and it was good or bad. This is how we're feeling because we're human, and not to it. I guess to expand it beyond like some sort of like love album or something like that, because it's not. I mean, it's an angry album. It's a sad album. It's a question without a solution, and even if you have the solution, there's more questions.
Around what time did Michael J. and the Foxes start to emerge?
I don't know. I had like written like a verse of this like very folky, country, twangy song, and I was like, I'm never gonna do anything with this. Like, what am I gonna do? Because I mean, I liked it and I thought it was cool for what it was, but it was just like, that's not what I do. Like, I'm not gonna let myself focus on that right now. And I guess, I don't know, I mean, maybe 2 years ago was like kind of the beginning ideas of what it was. And I mean, I kind of started Michael J. and the Foxes because I had this moment in time of just writing a lot because of like breakups and all that typical sort of crap. And I wrote a lot. So I started Michael J. kind of while we were like waiting for the album to come out, I think, or maybe even before that a little bit. I don't remember exactly, but yeah, it was something that I had started kind of just as like a whatever thing, and then after I had this like moment of really just all of these songs pouring out, I was like, okay, well, let's do this for real for a little bit and see how it goes. I mean, again, not taking it on the road, not really doing anything like that, not yet at least. But that's not really in the cards right now. We're just not focused on that. It's a songwriting project, I guess. So that's what we're just doing.
Yeah, I know it has gotten some recognition, like when you wrote in Hotel Lobby. Yeah, I think that won the current best folk song.
Yeah, it was like the best. I guess they just put the best song, but yeah, we got second best country alternative band, and Hotel Lobby got best song, which was pretty crazy. I didn't really. We played a show here one time, pretty recently after I had written the song, and like the whole crowd was singing along, and I was like, when the hell did that happen? Like, because I didn't even really like officially record it, like, I mean, I made some like home recording, but I mean, I liked those, and I thought it sounded cool for what it was. But it was a good example of like it didn't need to be like this high produced sort of song. It was just this home recording. These like my vocals crack a lot. It's real grungy and like messy volume wise, but the song, I guess, people seem to like, and so that was cool. That was really cool when that happened.
What would you say your main purpose is as a singer-songwriter? Would it be to be telling stories, or is it kind of, like we said, creating this abstraction over who you are, how you're feeling?
I don't necessarily like telling stories just to tell stories. Like, it would be harder for me to write something about something that didn't involve myself. Or at least, I guess I could say it's harder to do that sort of thing. Michael J. and the Foxes is pretty much just a narrative of my life. And I put it in that fun sort of way because nobody likes people who are negative. But so I get to like say what I think in a fun but serious way, I guess. I don't know what the middle ground of that is, but it's what I aim for. So, I'm not necessarily in those songs. I talk about the music scene in the city and stuff like that, and of course I'm not saying like I hate the whole city and stuff like that, but I mean I think anybody that, well, I guess people relate because people liked Hotel Lobby, so. Yeah.
Okay. How did you come to acquiring the 1011? Because I know it'd been a pretty long run for them. It's been like 8 years, and that's pretty great because venues don't really last too long, especially not being off the St. Mary Strip.
Yeah.
Or even ones that are on the St. Mary Strip.
Yeah.
So how did that come to be?
How I became the owner?
Is it kind of like passing down the torch type thing?
Yeah, I mean, sort of. It was not that simple, unfortunately, and it was not as nice of a story as it could have been. Still business deals involved, still, the grown-up way of going about things, which is cool. That's necessary. And I think, if anything, it was mainly me kind of having to say, hey, I'm not the sound guy anymore. I'm capable of doing this. Because, I mean, we were, with the 1011, more of a family, more, whether I'm like the younger brother of the 3 owners and stuff like that. There is good and bad about there's good and bad. This is the first time this has happened to me, like right now. There's good and bad to the way things went down. Definitely a thing, less than what I would have preferred. But it was kind of me having to be like, for as much as it could be part of their concern that like, as like that younger brother, am I going to be able to do this? And also like, me kind of having to forcefully be like, hey, what the fuck? Like, of course I can do this, So, I don't know. I mean, it all worked out, and they're still very helpful, and we still talk, and we got a lot of stuff to still, a lot of business to still do. So that's them.
And I know the whole story of the 1011 kind of all culminated. It was called the Final Weekend, where you had different mainstays throughout the years come and play. It all kind of ending with Grasshopper Lights Heavy playing, from what I've heard, is their loudest set. And from what I hear, it was a fantastic weekend, a great way to end this kind of legacy with a bang.
Yeah. We had a lot of people come out and just, Jordan made posters that everybody got. And, it was really cool. It was really cool to work with like some of the bands, that we've worked with for a long time. A lot of the guys did favors in pulling the kind of older bands that hadn't really played a while, and to come back here and do the thing. So it was a really good weekend.
I've actually have a quote from you here. It kind of resonated with me when I was doing research on you. You said, "I'm not really good at anything else," and I thought that was really endearing because I kind of feel the same way in my own medium. Do you think, as an artist, you're kind of you personally just really meant to kind of grow your music, play for people, or do you kind of feel like you're meant to do many different things?
Well, I think the bar is my way of taking on a new kind of venture that is still involved with the things that I've been involved with for years. But, of course, on the more business side of things, like, I hope that everything goes well and is successful, so I can, like, make music on my downtime and like, you know, still make that like I say on my downtime, but like, I mean, still something that will always be something I do. But it's like I said, as far as going off and paying someone for publication and I mean, that sort of thing never came. When an independent band does something, they're playing shows to make money, or everybody's putting their own money in, and it takes a lot to get a little. And so I'm hoping that this is kind of my lot, that from now on, whenever I do something musically, I'll at least have the means to like take it more seriously and kind of, you know, maybe for the steps, whether they be few and far between or not, they would be bigger steps. And so I don't know if, you know, it's what I'll always do, but I have the intentions of doing it for as long as I'm capable.
So what is next for you?
A lot of sweeping, a lot of mopping, a lot of learning how to place better beer orders. Yeah, just you know, making sure like running this business, and I would like, I guess, also down the line, you know, there are more organizations doing the things with the local community that now than there were. But at some point, maybe it would be cool to get involved with something like that, to be that person to tell those younger bands that like are really good but are really not there yet in one way or the other, like what the hell to do so they don't end up 27 and drunk. So they don't end up, you know, wasting time.
Yes.
And I think, you know, so music and that and the bar, growing up better.
What's next for Dear Vibes, Michael J and the Foxes? You guys have anything planned? Any big projects?
Not particularly, I don't think. You know, Michael J is more of a songwriting project, so in that, and it kind of goes back to like, I'm not a really good singer either, so I'm not necessarily trying to make these songs get on, you know, country music television. Is that what it's called? I don't know.
CMT?
Yeah. Anything like that. I don't think that it would be my voice to get some of my songs places. I would like to sell some of them if I could, because I think that's more of a adult way of thinking about music. And same thing like with the music of Dear Vibes. Like, I mean, you know, I like the idea of making music for short films and movies and commercials or anything I could get my hands on in that sense. So those are like the kinds of places musically that I'd like to go with, that kind of don't really depend on how everything else is going, I guess. Yeah.
Well, I think you're a fantastic singer-songwriter, guitarist. So yeah, that's pretty much all I have. Thank you so much for letting me sit down with you. This is a very intimate interview, very open. I really enjoyed it. And yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much.